Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today will be Bob Narang of the Chicago Tribune. Today's episode sponsored by the Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water. The Well is a coffee house with a mission to bring clean water to the world. To date, over 30 communities across the globe have access to safe water, health, and hope. You too can make an impact by visiting a Well Coffee House today. There are 5 locations to serve you in the Nashville area: Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown Bellevue, and Cool Springs Lifeway. More information can be found at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We also thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a local injury law firm committed to helping those who've been injured in accidents. If you or someone you know has been in a wreck or other accident, reach out to Sutherland and Belk and see what your rights are. You can find their contact info online at sbinjurylaw.com. Door Jam is scheduled for Saturday. It is 3 to 5 in the indoor practice facility. There's free admission. There is entertainment for kids. There is a Design Your Own T-shirt event open to the first 2,000 folks through the gates. You can meet the players, get autographs. You can meet the SEC champion women's soccer team, and you can also see the reveal of the football team's new uniform. Our guest line, presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on Boll & Branch sheets for years. They're amazing. I had no clue how comfortable sheets could be until I got Boll & Branch sheets. They are fair trade certified. That means they're made under safe conditions by men and women, treated and paid fairly. You can try them for a month and return them anytime in that window, but trust me, you're not going to want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That's spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy to get $50 off your first set of sheets. Today's question and answer session, sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Do you need an insurance agent who wants to know your unique needs and circumstances and will tailor an insurance plan to fit them? Josh is your guy. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He's my insurance agent. Give him a shot. Josh will take care of your needs just as he has mine. And don't forget, Josh is helping out with Camp Horizon, which is a camp for kids with cancer. Give Josh a call. There are many sponsorship opportunities. He would like your help in being part of that. Bob Narang of the Chicago Tribune joins us now. He covers the MAC and Northern Illinois. Bob, football season is upon us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Let's talk about Northern Illinois in general. I know that 20 years ago, this was not a program that was anywhere in the national conversation. Northern Illinois has actually gotten in the national conversation by going to the Orange Bowl back in the 2012 season. It has been to bowls 10 of the last 11 years. It has done it under different coaches. It has made national rankings at times. What has been the key to its success, and where did everything change with Northern Illinois football?
Well, you know what the irony is? It started changing in 1999, 20 years ago. At that time, that was the last time Northern Illinois and Vanderbilt played, if I'm not mistaken. It was at Vanderbilt. I think it was the second game of the year, and it was a barn burner game, 34-31. Northern Illinois was looking for a win. I mean, they were losing at the time. Joe Novak was the head coach. If I'm not mistaken, his record at that time after that loss was 3-32 at NIU. So you can see they were desperately needing a win, and they almost got that win against Vanderbilt. But then Northern lost 2 more games. They went 3-34 Novak's tenure, and they won 4 straight games. And ever since the middle of the 1999 season, the program's turned another leaf, and it's gradually got better from 1999 to its current state.
I remember that game. If memory serves, Northern Illinois was up, I think, 28-0, and then Vanderbilt kind of woke up and ended up winning that game, I believe, at the end. I think Jimmy Williams, who went on to play 7 or 8 years in the NFL for the 49ers for one, had a long punt return. If I remember correctly, I think that's how that game went down.
I was at that game, but I remember the dawn of the internet. And I remember how typing that story, how hard it was. But it was what I remember. It was a pretty exciting game. It was a game-changing special teams play, and it was just very frustrating for the Northern Illinois coaching staff because they thought they had a win against the SEC team alone on the road, and then another frustrating loss that added to the loss of the Novak's tenure at that time. And it was just that, but then they built from that close, I guess, moral victory, you want to call it. They built from that moment, and they finally won the game 3 weeks later.
Bob, one interesting thing about that game that not a lot of people know is Northern Illinois had a lot of talent on that team, including some names that people might know and remember.
Oh, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, 6 to 8 players from that team play in the NFL. I mean, some played short stints, but four in particular, PJ Fleck, they had 3 wide receivers who made the NFL for the team. PJ Fleck was a freshman. Obviously, everybody knows who PJ is. He's head coach of Minnesota. PJ had a cup of coffee with the 49ers. You look at Justin McCarron, who was wide receiver for the Jets mainly. He signed a 5-year, $25 million contract. And then Darryl Hill, who played for the Titans, was part of that team too. And then Ryan Dean, who had a long career as offensive lineman for the Colts. So it was a very talented team. I know not many people knew about them much in that game in 1990, but that team was full of talent. And obviously, at that time, it was very unique for a MAC team to have 3 players who played one position went to the NFL.
Well, and the Titans actually drafted Justin McCarron.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You're right. And he started off with them, and then went to the Jets, and then Justin and Darryl were even on the same team for a year or two, if I'm not mistaken.
I've said Northern Illinois has done this under different coaches. It will have to do it under another new coach this year. Rod Carey has gone to Temple. Thomas Hammock, who played at Northern and now comes back after 4 years on the Ravens coaching staff as its running backs coach, is the head coach. What changes now?
Well, obviously Rod Carey had a successful tenure. You don't win, 4 MAC titles, if I'm not mistaken. He took him to 6 bowl games. But at the same time, probably change was needed for all parties. I mean, Carey was a person that either you liked him or didn't like him. He rubbed you the wrong way. And he rubbed some high school coaches the wrong way, in particular some high school coaches, some powerhouse programs. He had a little tough time recruiting, and that was evident in his need for transfers. I mean, he relied on transfers a lot. But the program slowly from 2012 when they played Florida State and Orangeville was slightly declining. I mean, even last year, they won the MAC, but they finished with an 8-6 record. They've been blown out in most of their bowl losses. So just the change might be good. I mean, but as you all know, sometimes change can be bad. But Coach Hammock, he knows the program. He coached there. He played there. He's a star running back. He even played in that 1999 game until a heart condition. But his background, you look at coaching at Wisconsin, Minnesota, with the Ravens, it's kind of invigorated the program. So we'll see where it goes from there. And it's helped them their recruiting.
What is the expectation for Northern Illinois this year in terms of win-loss record and anything else that goes with the territory?
Well, last year, they struggled on offense. Everybody knows that. They were down the bottom in a lot of key categories, in particular on passing. But then they're down to Buffalo, I think, 18, 19 points, and then they win that game. Their quarterback had an amazing comeback in the second half, but then they get blown out in the bowl game. So, expectations are always high for a program like Northern Illinois. Joe Novak built the program. It deserves the respect. It's considered one of the best, if not the best in the MAC. So expectations are looking at 9-10 win season. It just depends with the quarterback situation, with the offensive line situation, and if they can get some playmakers more steady on offense.
Bob, the timing of this game is interesting. On the Northern Illinois end, the Huskies have Utah week 2, which is expected to be a top 25 team. Nebraska in week 3, that's a team that has a shot to be good. But it also has a bye before it comes to Nashville. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt plays LSU the week before. Do you think there's any significance or advantage to either team in terms of the timing of the game?
Well, it's tough because a lot of people know about Northern Illinois 2014 that beat Alabama, beat Maryland, beat Iowa State, and was ranked. But a lot of people don't know the year before the team might have been better, but they got bogged down with a killer schedule similar to this year. Mid-American teams have a hard time sustaining when you're playing 3 straight powerful teams like you just mentioned, and then back to back to back, and obviously they have a bye week. But at the same time, they don't have the manpower to recoup after big injuries. So it'll be interesting how Northern is able to recover. I mean, Nebraska is going to want to beat Northern Illinois after NIU beat them a couple of years ago. Obviously Utah's a very good program. NIU beat BYU, so they've shown they can last year. So they've shown they can handle themselves. But it will be interesting to consider who Vanderbilt plays the week before. Are they going to have a letdown, or is Northern Illinois going to have that? Okay, we played Nebraska, we played Utah, but now we have a 2-week bye. It's a unique dynamic going into that game, obviously.
Well, and I didn't mention this, and you may or may not have been aware of it, but Vanderbilt actually, of course, opens with Georgia, then goes to Purdue, then it has that bye week before LSU, so that may get neutralized a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because that's such a killer schedule, especially for a team like Vanderbilt and the SEC who's fighting for attention, respect. Then they play such powerhouses off the bat. I mean, some people like that type of scheduling, where some people like Northern Illinois open up against Illinois State. They've opened up in the past against some teams like Western. You kind of get that cupcake win, you build some confidence. So it will be interesting with Vanderbilt. Are they going to sustain a key injury to your quarterback at the start of the season? Are they going to get beat down with injuries from that tough schedule, or even losing some tough games?
Let's talk the offense for a minute. Quarterback Marcus Childers took Northern Illinois to the MAC title game, did some good things at times, but the offense, as you mentioned, wasn't very good. Now you've got a new coach who seems to want to go pro style. You've got a quarterback in Rod Bowers who seems to fit that better from what I have read. Who wins that quarterback job?
It's still wide open right now from what I understand. I mean, Childers is going into his junior year. I mean, he was a MAC freshman of the year, 2 years ago, so he showed a lot of promise. So last year, by his own admission, he kind of pressed a little bit. I think he had about 15 touchdowns, maybe 10 interceptions. You can see that touchdown interception ratio needs to be lowered a little bit. But he can run the ball, which provides a unique dynamic to the offense. At the same time, when you got a transfer from California and Ross Bowers, I mean, everybody at the MAC, I don't know, loves transfers from big schools like Bowers. Bowers is a pro-style quarterback, but he doesn't really run as much. But at the same time, he provides a unique dynamic with a strong arm. But he's only throwing under 500 career passes, so you don't know what you're going to get when he starts off the season if he wins the job. It's going to be an interesting battle between them, and it might even go down to the final practice of the season.
What else is worth watching on that side of the ball? I know Northern Illinois has a running back who went over 1,000 last year. Who are the players to watch? Where are the concerns on that side of the ball?
Well, they have a very good rushing attack, and that's been built through the years. And when Hammock was running back there, they had a traditional 1,000-yard runners that extended several years to even, and now they're trying to go back to that. And Trey Harbison is one of the key running backs. He ran for 1,000 yards last year, but then they're pretty deep at running back. They got Marcus Jones, they got Jordan Nettles, they got a transfer from North Carolina State. They're very strong at running back, so obviously they're going to lean on that. It'll be interesting how much that offense changes if Childers doesn't win the starting job. But at the same time, Hammock, emphasized, even though his background is being a running back, coaching running back, that he's emphasized more of a wide open attack because they do have some talented wide receivers. It's just developing some of them.
It's not often that a MAC program loses a two-time All-American defensive end, but that's what happened to the Huskies with Sutton Smith. That defense was pretty good the last couple of years. How big of a drop-off is there without their All-American?
And that's an interesting point. That is one of the toughest things. You hear MAC action, you see all these 50-point games and MAC games, but whenever a MAC team is able to establish a solid defense, that's what usually catapults them to the championship. And you're losing a guy like Sutton Smith. I mean, he was Mr. Everything. I mean, and he did everything, and he had 13 sacks last year, I believe, 23 tackles for losses. It's obviously creating a big hole, especially at a spot that you need to control the line of scrimmage. And then they're losing Josh Cochran, which is kind of another. I mean, I think Josh had 10 sacks last year, so you're losing two key kids that average combined for 23 sacks. So it's going to really hurt your defense. It's going to take a while for them to recover. But Coach Hammock talked a lot about building the depth on the defensive line, so that actually maybe they might be a little more deeper, but you're going to lose a lot of star power.
Bob, we've hit an overview of both sides of the ball in the program. Are there any other storylines or anything about this game in particular that you think is worth a discussion that we didn't get into?
Well, obviously for Northern Illinois, I mean, obviously it depends how they do in the previous games, and the same thing with Vanderbilt. It might be a changing moment of the season for both teams when you look at it. When you look at both teams playing a tough schedule before they play each other, it's almost a must-win game for both programs. I mean, I know in the grand scheme, Northern Illinois wants to win the Mid-American Conference, but for Vanderbilt, every win matters because you want to get that six 6-win mark, and you're playing in the toughest conference in the country. So the way I look at it, it's a pretty evenly matched game. I mean, obviously it's tilted a little towards Vanderbilt, but I could see it going either way. But as far as defining the season, it looks pretty important for both teams, which makes this game very unique.
Well, I'm looking back at Northern Illinois' history. Talk about some near misses in this type of game. NIU loses 20-13 to Ohio State in 2015, 17-14 at Boston College the next week. You go to 2016, it loses at Wyoming in 3 overtimes, then gets blown out at USF. But you go to last year, Northern Illinois loses the opener to Boston College 23-20. It actually beats Nebraska in Lincoln, which did not make my wife's family happy. They are Nebraska grads. So there was that one that they got, and a loss at San Diego State by 6. I just looked through recent history. I lost to Florida State last year too, although that was a little more lopsided. But 17-6 to Utah last year. Just Northern Illinois has a history of playing teams close in these type of games, but more often than not, falling just a little bit short.
Well, that's been the key thing about the Rod Carey era. If I'm not mistaken, his record in MAC play was 38-10. So a lot of his losses came in non-conference. And like you mentioned a couple questions before that, bar is raised so high with Northern Illinois, they expect almost to win one of these games against a Power 5 team or BCS team every year. So when you look back, it's like a lot of those that was a knock on Carey. Couldn't win the non-conference game. They lost all 6 of their bowl games, if not most of them by blowout fashion. So then he does so well in the regular season and conference, but then he struggles in the non-conference. So that's what they're hoping with Hammock, with his background, his knowledge of the program, maybe an uptick in recruiting, which they've already shown, that will help them win some of these more games against non-conference opponents such as Vanderbilt. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen this year, obviously, but maybe down the road in a year or two, you're going to probably see Northern Illinois win a few more of these games.
Bob, Nashville has become a destination city for football fans, especially in the SEC. You will see teams bring 10 or 20,000 fans. And, of course, Nashville also has a lot of alums from other SEC schools in its backyard. But how does Northern Illinois travel? Is this a game that a lot of folks have circled just because Nashville is such a popular place to go to these days?
Yeah, well, 20 years ago, there weren't very much a travel contingent down there, but now I wouldn't doubt, especially with the bye week, that people, in particular, if they play well against Nebraska and Utah or pull off an upset, I figure there'll be a pretty good contingent. Northern Illinois' AD has done a great job on, organizing events for them and everything, bringing them down. It's a growing program. It's not like obviously not a traditional program like some that you're used to that Vanderbilt plays, but the fan base is a solid base. And, it's not that long of a drive, if I'm not mistaken, about a 10-hour drive, short flight, obviously. So I wouldn't doubt that they have a pretty good base, especially with tickets, I'm assuming it's pretty easy to come by. That there should be a good, strong base that comes down there.
Bob, thank you for joining us. He is Bob Narang of the Chicago Tribune. Really appreciate your time and your insight today. Tell people where they can read your coverage, where they can follow you on Twitter, anything that our audience might be interested in.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on. You can follow me on Twitter at Bob Narang, or you can see my stuff on the Tribune. I work for all various platforms of the Tribune, or just Google my name. You should find me in a stream of articles, and also stuff I've done on Athlons and Lindy's on Northern Illinois.
He is Bob Narang of the Chicago Tribune. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll have more episodes coming your way again next week.